Sally 55 Customs, and today I'm here to show you how to prepare and paint a front plastic bumper. So this bumper is for a 2007 Ford Focus. The process is really easy. It can be done on any type of plastic bumper or any other plastic piece for the car. I'll walk you through that and also tell you the differences of what you would need to do to paint a metal bumper or a metal part of the car as well. Since very similar process, just a few small differences. So to start out, we're going to want to hand sand the whole bumper with some fine grit sandpaper. I have 400 grit right here. And if you feel it, you can feel all of these little bumps all over it, and that's just how it comes from the factory. This is a brand new bumper. And so we're just going to want to smooth that out, otherwise you're going to be able to see it when you prime it and paint it. And if this is a metal bumper, you would want to have an electric sander or a harder grit sandpaper like a 60 or 80 grit, and you'd want to sand the whole thing down with that just to get the top layer of paint off and make it all nice and smooth for the primer. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick once over with this sandpaper, and you're going to want to have it so it's nice and smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that. Alright, so I have it all sanded down, and you're going to want to take like a cloth or something, just wipe all the residue off because it's going to make a little bit of plastic residue on there. And I already did that, so it's all nice and smooth and ready to go, ready to be primed. So the primer I'm using is just a standard automobile primer. The color of the cap is the color that the primer is going to be, so you want to keep that in mind. And I got it at our local auto parts store for like $7. You're going to want to wear a respirator while you do this, or a mask, because it is going to make a lot of fumes and you do not want to breathe those fumes in. You're going to want to shake it up a little bit for about a minute or two, and you're going to want to hold it about 8 to 10 inches away from whatever you're painting, in this case the bumper, and then you're going to want to do long strokes of the primer. You don't want to have little jagged strokes, otherwise it's going to overlap and you don't want that. Otherwise it's going to have like too much paint on there. And then you're going to wait a few minutes for it to dry, and you can see all the wet spots so you'll know when it's dry. And then you're going to put on a second layer, and then we're going to wait 2 to 4 hours for it to completely dry. And then we're going to go ahead and wet sand it after that. So I'm going to go ahead and put on the first layer of primer. Put my respirator on. This is 400 grit wet dry sandpaper. You're going to want to kind of douse it in the water first, and then you're just going to go around and sand it till it's nice and baby butt smooth. And you don't want it to become dry because the water helps give it a nice smooth consistency. So we are going to go around and just see that it's all over. And after we finish this up, we're going to let it dry, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to paint it. So I finished wet sanding it, and I just have this damp rag, just going through and wiping it all down. You want to get the residue off, because it creates a little residue. Around. And then you can feel if there's any spots that you need to touch up. I I usually have a spot or two that I do touch up in the end. You just want to make it literally baby butt smooth, otherwise you'll see those imperfections when you paint. Alright, so I have everything set up to be painted. I have tarps laid down. I have everything propped up on either boxes or the sawhorses, so I can get all the edges, because if it's laying on the ground, you're not going to be able to properly get all the edges like you want to. So to start with, you're going to want to have tarps down, have the items that you're painting propped up. Right now I'm doing 3 different items, so I have those all laid out in front of me right now. I have a big fan behind me that I'm going to turn on when I start painting. This is going to push out all the dust and all the other particles in the air, and it's going to give me a cleaner paint job. I have this big roll open and down door open, so it's going to be pushed through there. And I have this paint gun. You know, there's a little hole in the top. When you're painting, you want to make sure that stays open. It can get clogged sometimes. And if you're painting flat, like how everything's laid flat right now, you are going to want to only fill this up about halfway, because if you tilt it, you don't want it pouring out of the hole out of the top and spilling onto what you're painting. I have the paint, and you can find what paint it is. If you look inside the door, there should be a sticker. It might be in that general area, maybe not on the door, but it'll tell you the interior and exterior paint, and it'll have a little number or letters, and then you take that to a auto body paint store, and they'll mix up that exact paint for you, and then it's going to be mixed with the solvent that they give you, and then that's going to be mixed 1:1 for the ratio. And then you're going to want to mix it up, and then you're going to want to pour it through these filters so it filters out all the junk before you paint. And before you paint, you're going to wipe it down with these tack cloths. These are going to get the excess dirt, dog hair, whatever falls onto the paint off. Otherwise, you're going to be able to see it through the layers of paint, and it'll be pretty noticeable. So we're going to do that between the different layers of paint that we're going to do. You're going to do it first before you paint, and then we're going to lay a layer of paint down, and then we're going to wait 20 minutes and then put a second coat of paint on, and then we're going to let that dry. 2 coats should be enough. You always want to wear a respirator while doing this, and you want to do it when it's under like 80-90 degrees, between 50 and 90 degrees generally, otherwise it's going to be too hot or too cold for the paint. I think I've covered everything I want to cover, so I'm going to go ahead and get everything mixed up and then start painting, and then after all of this dries, you have to wait a few hours before you do the clear coat. So after all this dries, I'll show you how to do the clear coat as well. It's also very important to clean out your paint gun right when you're done, because you do not want your paint gun getting clogged up. I have this paint thinner, and if you just run it through your paint gun a few times, take out the needle and scrub down all the parts with it, it'll get it nice and clean so your paint gun doesn't get ruined. So one more thing before I get started that is pretty important that I forgot to mention. When you paint, you're going to want to stay about 8 to 12 inches away, and then you're going to want to keep the nozzle flat with the item that you're painting at all times. So you don't want to angle it, otherwise it'll push the paint and it'll ripple it. So you want to just keep it flat, so you kind of have to like swivel your arm when you do it to keep it flat with the item that you're painting.
You want to start the video?
So here are the parts I just finished painting. I'm doing the bumper, the hood, and also the top of the tailgate. It was peeling really bad, so I sanded it and just repainted it. So they look really good. They need a clear coat still. It's like nice smooth texture. Some dust on it, but we'll get that off. We have the clear coat that we're going to use. So this is the clear coat and the hardener. So this is the MS78 and this is the MH78S. And on the side here, it tells you need 2 parts of the clear coat and 1 part of the hardener, because it's the MH78S. So 1 part this, 2 parts the clear coat, 1 part this, the hardener. And then we're going to do the same thing. We are going to use these filters, filter the clear coat into a cup, pour it into the paint gun, and then we are going to do 2 layers of the clear coat. I did do 3 layers of the paint just because I had extra paint left over, but it looks the same pretty much with 2 or 3 coats, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to go ahead, mix this up. You got to make sure your gun is thoroughly cleaned, otherwise you're going to have little hard pieces of paint in there. So that's important. I'm going to mix this together and start painting. Here's the end result of the bumper. It's nice and smooth. Very happy with the way it turned out. And I put the second layer of clear coat on. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And we would love it if you subscribe to our channel so you can see all of our upcoming videos. We have a whole bunch coming up, so stay tuned for that.